Good afternoon. This is Susan Savage. I'm with the New York State Department of State, and I work specifically on countywide shared services. Joining me this afternoon are my colleagues Chris Grant and Mike Morris. We're going to break this into parts, and one of the things we wanted to make you aware of is that we will answer questions at the end of the presentation, and you can enter them into the chat, but we're not going to answer them until the end of the presentation. So we appreciate you all being here today. I want to thank you. I have really enjoyed working with so many of you. As you may know, I have a background in county government, so I understand your concerns, and I know how hard you work to save taxpayer money. So I do enjoy working with you on this program. So we will jump right into it. As many of you will remember, Countywide Shared Services, or CWSSI, was established in 2017, and it was established to help local governments work together in order to enhance services and save taxpayer money. And right now, as we take a look at it, 57 counties outside of New York City are participants, and each panel is chaired by the county Chief Executive Officer or CEO. The panel is comprised of required members and optional members. Required members are the mayor of each city and village and the supervisor of each town. There are also optional members, and they can be, at the invitation of the CEO, representatives of school boards, BOCES, fire districts, fire protection districts, and other special improvement districts that are invited to participate by the CEO. Since its inception, CWSSI has funded over 100 shared service projects. 56 out of 57 eligible counties have submitted plans, and 32 counties have received awards. One of the things we want to highlight is that over the course of countywide shared services, $37 million has been funded and matched your efforts to save taxpayer money. So at this point, over $37 million has been allocated in matching funds. Snapshot, we can see that CWSSI projects have included a wide variety of projects, including insurance, communications, pharmacy benefits, LED lighting conversions, assessment services, highway equipment, police consolidation, court consolidation, IT services, an athletic complex, solid waste and recycling, human services, parks and recreation, public works, website redesign, healthcare, vehicle purchase, and public safety. And that's not an inclusive number. There are more projects as well, but these are some of the ones that we wanted to highlight today. As I mentioned before, the county-led panels consist of the Chief Executive Officer, the mayors of every city and village in the county, and the supervisors of each town within the county. And by invitation of the CEO, a representative of school districts, BOCES, fire districts, fire protection districts, and other special improvement districts may also be panel members. So how can local governments share services? Some examples are county to county. There is maybe a misunderstanding early in the program that counties could not share services with other counties and receive match. They certainly can. And we're seeing more and more county-to-county sharing. County to city, town to village, town to town, town to city, town to fire district, city to village, school districts to BOCES, any combination of those eligible partners. And we also want to stress that the county does not need to be a partner in every project. In this way, many of the things that you would like to put in your plan may be very homegrown and grow out of natural partnerships. Planning and the timeline. So we always encourage people to start their planning as early as possible. So by now you may have wanted to hold at least one panel meeting, put your panel together, see what kind of ideas your panelists have. During this part of the year, sometimes there is a second panel meeting, to see where things stand. Important things to remember are that every county in their plan needs to allow for at least 2 planning sessions and 3 public hearings. Another important thing is to remember to leave 45 days for review from a draft plan to your legislative body. Many counties will then hold a final meeting later in the year and before their full panel vote, and then we'll submit the plan generally before December 31st. As of January 1, 2021, it's no longer mandatory for counties to submit CWSSI plans annually. However, if no plan is adopted by a county in a calendar year, the county CEO must continue to release in a public statement that no plan was adopted and transmit the statement to the Secretary of State. Another change to CWSSI is that counties may choose now from one of 2 statutory match years. So those statutory match years are January 1st through December 31st, has been the practice throughout, and now also July 1st of the year immediately following approval of the plan through June 30th of the subsequent year. Another change is that Governor Hochul signed Chapter 717 on December 16th, and that action took effect immediately. And these changes, with this amendment, projects that were included in previously submitted CWSSI plans but never implemented can now be included in future plans and be eligible for state matching funds. So that's something that we heard from counties, from local governments, that there may be a reason that a great idea wasn't able to be implemented earlier. Now, if you put it in one of your plans going forward, it would now be eligible for match, if all other things were, all other rules were followed as well. So as we stated, because we still get questions on this from time to time, panels must hold at least 2 panel meetings, 3 public hearings, and an important thing that sometimes gets missed is the panels must allow 45 days for review by the legislative body before final approval of the plan. Counties must submit the approved plan to the Secretary of State at our website, Countywide Shared Services at dos.ny.gov by December 31st or within 30 days of approval of the plan by the panel. So if you approve your plan on December 30th, you still have an additional 30 days to submit to Countywide Shared Services. Counties must also publicly disseminate the plan, and county leaders must conduct a public presentation of the plan. That has not changed. We're now going to move to a second part of the presentation where we do receive a lot of questions, which is a little bit more complicated, and that's the match application guidance. And I'm going to turn this over to my colleague Chris Grant, who is going to run through that part of the presentation.
Okay. Just want to make sure that everyone can hear me and that the microphone is on. Okay. Thank you, Susan, very much for your great introduction to countywide shared services and the history of the program. It's been going very, very well. And now we're going to turn to the second part, which is preparing the match application. We get a lot of questions about this, and I think it would be very helpful if we discuss the process and what's included in your match application guidance, as well as go through an actual example of preparing a match application. Okay, so the overview of the entire section is going to be as follows. We'll first discuss the parameters of the match application process, and by parameters we mean the outlines, the do's and don'ts. Then we're going to talk about the preparation of a match application, all the various different parts of the match application, and how they work in sequence and their timeline. And then we will go through, as I mentioned earlier, an example of filling in a match application. And I think you'll find it quite easy once you understand exactly how the various parts fit together and work towards getting you towards your match savings. Okay. And we'll close off with just a mention of our staff here at the Division of Local Government Services. We'll give you contacts, who to call, should you need further assistance. Okay, parameters. As I mentioned, these are the outlines or the guidelines for a shared services project. For example, a project may generate a large amount of savings, but because it started outside of an implementation period, it is not eligible. So you need to understand what is allowed and what is not allowed. First of all, savings must result from shared services between 2 or more participating local governments. That means that an action performed by a single government, say a reorganization of a department within an institution, is not eligible for savings because it is not a shared service. A shared service must be between 2 municipalities. Secondly, only net savings are eligible for match savings. By net savings, what we mean is gross savings from the project, less implementation costs and grant funds. Now, with grant funds, ARPA funds are not included. It's important that you know that. Okay, implementation costs are, of course, the costs of implementing a project, starting it up, and all of those things. And grant funds, if you receive a grant from any federal state agency, again, excluding ARPA, and those grants were used to develop the project, then they must be subtracted from your gross savings. That's to prevent, obviously, double dipping. And finally, capital costs must be amortized using the straight line method of depreciation for the asset class. By capital costs, we mean costs for a capital item which has a useful life of more than 1 year. Okay? So things with a short-term lifespan, things like, I don't know, office stationery, this also applies to personnel, their costs are used up front. A capital item, which has a cost exceeding a year, we only give credit for that portion which is used during the first year for savings. Now, for straight line method of depreciation of the asset class, you can find the depreciation period in the state's period of probable usefulness table, and this is state finance law. I believe it's section 11 of the state finance law. You can look in there, and it has a time frame for each type of asset class. For example, a short-term one, such as a software, may have a useful life of 3 years, whereas a long-term asset like a sewer plant or something of that nature may have a useful life of 50 years, up to 50 years. To prepare the match application, there are 7 steps you must undertake. And all of these steps are outlined in your match application guidance, which is the document that we send out with a blank match application form every year at the beginning of the year so that you can start the preparation of your match application. Okay, so step 1 is to prepare. Prepare. It's very important. You should begin really as soon as possible, usually right at the beginning of the calendar year following the submission of a CWSSI plan. I think you heard Susan say there are 2 different implementation periods you can choose. One starting January 1st in the year following filing of a plan, or the other starting July 1st in the year following the implementation of the plan. Now, we will issue during that time a blank match application, which must be completed by each county who submitted a CWSSI plan, and the blank match application will list the various projects that are outlined in that plan, and also the estimated savings from that plan. And those things are published, of course, in each CWSSI plan. We'll just go in there, take the information, put it into a blank match application, and send that to you so it's ready to be worked on from day 1. Okay, then the county should review each match application for accuracy and completeness. Okay, we don't always get it right. We admit that sometimes wrong projects get into a match application, or there are incorrect names given to the projects. And of course, municipal contact information is always changing as people cycle in and out of office and leadership changes. Okay, so you should make changes if they're necessary and advise us whether the match application is correct. If it's not correct, we'll go ahead and make the necessary changes so that we're working with a clean document. The municipal savings report, this is step 3. After the period of time in which to generate savings has passed, and that period of time, of course, is the implementation period, either January 1st or July 1st. After that period of time, the county will distribute the municipal savings report, it's called Appendix A, and it's in your guidance again, to participating local government entities for completion. So this is a gathering exercise. The county will collect all of the completed municipal savings reports and supporting documentation from the individual participants, municipal participants. And it's important to note that all municipal savings reports must have a signed attestation from the Chief Executive Officer. Okay? Understand that we don't rely on the attestation for approving a match application. We will be doing our own analysis based upon the supporting documentation that you provide. Step 5, and this occurs approximately 2 months after the receipt of the municipal savings reports. That's the county receiving municipal savings reports from the individual municipalities. The county's job then is to compile the completed municipal savings reports and supporting documentation and input all data into the CWSSI match application. Then submit the application to DOS. The Appendix B here refers to the actual match application itself, and completing the match application and submitting to DOS. This task, by the way, is usually assigned to the contact person who is listed in the county information in the actual match application. So it's important that you have that county person identified, contact person rather, identified, and all contacts up to date. Then, when DOS receives the match applications, we'll review them for project eligibility. In other words, we'll look at the periods in which the project was undertaken, make sure they meet the implementation requirements and any other requirements relating to the CWSSI initiative. And counties will work then with DOS to provide any missing information, such as shared services agreements and savings calculations. Those are two items that are frequently missing. And we shouldn't also forget here intermunicipal agreements, which describe and memorialize the shared service or shared services, documentation of savings, and sometimes, if necessary, verification, third-party verification of costs, so that we can get a very accurate take on what certified savings are. The final step is what we call the use and distribution agreement. This follows approval of the match application, and following approval, we will send you what's called a use and distribution agreement, otherwise known as Appendix C, and we will ask you and your partners to determine how the award will be distributed. It's important that you understand that the award does not need to be the amount that each partner saves in a shared services agreement. The funds may be distributed in any manner as long as all participants agree. And that's why all participants are required to sign the use and distribution agreement, even if they're not receiving any funding from a particular project, any award from a particular project. Okay, so let's go to our example and take you through exactly how you're going to fill in a match application from start to finish. The first tab, and there are 4 tabs at the bottom of a match application, is information about the county itself, and this is very basic stuff. Obviously, the name of the county, the chief executive officer, and then very importantly, as I mentioned earlier, the contact person who we will call to discuss the match application and any calculations in the document. And be sure that this information is up to date. We have up-to-date phone numbers, email addresses, et cetera, because there will be a lot of contact back and forth. Tab 2 is a summary of the projects that were in the plan, the CWSSI plan that was filed the previous year. In this case, this county has identified or did identify in their plan 4 different projects, being a joint prescription pharmacy purchasing plan, consolidation of the town and village police departments, a shared highway DPW and DPW equipment, and consolidation of town justices. Of course, I'm not using real examples here. This is an example that's made up so as not to identify any information that should not be discussed. Okay, so ignore for the time being the certified actual savings line. We'll get to that in the next tab, which is project details. This is tab 3, and this is where the most work is required. So follow closely on how we do this. I get more questions about tab 3 and filling in the project details than anything else. For the sake of expediency, I've just identified 1 project here out of the CWSSI plan, which this particular county wants to report. And that is the consolidation of the town and village police departments. So the way to do this, the way to fill in this form is under project name in that column. You can't see it, but at the far right of the column, there is a button for drop down. If you press that button, it looks like the one right above it, then all of the projects that are listed in tab 2 previously will appear, and you just need to select the project that you're reporting on. The same thing goes for partner. Click on the icon, on the drop-down menu icon, the far right of the cell, and it'll pull up all of the municipalities, and you click any town, that being the partner in this particular case. Go across, and in this case, it costs the town $200,000 to implement the consolidation. They may have had to increase their dispatch space, equipment, who knows, but there was a cost to the consolidation. Whereas the village below realized $500,000 in savings, and you put that directly into the certified actual savings column. And then you can see, if you add them up, the certified matchable savings is $500,000 savings less $200,000 implementation for a net of $300,000, which just happens to match the projected savings in tab 2. Okay, you can do the same thing, of course, with the 3 other projects. Be careful, you know, please provide us with in this case, perhaps an intermunicipal agreement or an agreement memorializing the merger or consolidation of the 2 departments, giving us the details of the contract, information on the cost, the implementation costs, what were they for, are there third-party information that we can use to determine those costs, and savings, again, what are they, how were they calculated, how can we verify them. The final tab, by the way, is a list of participating municipalities, and again, it's very important to keep this up to date because this is where the names come from to populate the columns in the previous tab in tab 3 when you're picking a partner. You can see there any town and any village are listed there along with the panel member's name and title. Ignore the far right-hand column which says agreed to distribution. That does not happen now. That will happen later with the use and distribution agreement, which we covered earlier. So that is really the process for completing the match application. And here, as I promised, is our contact information for DOS. Call Susan with any questions and requests. She's spoken to most of you, I know that, and is happy to hear from you. If you need anything else or matters of technical questions, you can call us, DOS, at 518-473-3355 and state the nature of your question, and you'll be directed to someone who can help you. So with that, we finished the presentation, and it's time now to open it up to questions.
Feel free to put those, so people send their questions. I do have one question, and that is whether this will be available, the recording will be available and distributed, which it will.
Okay.
But if you want to announce to people to, you know, put it in the chat if you have any questions.
Okay, please put in the chat function if you have any questions. Write them in there, and we will do our best to answer. We've already had one question, and that question is, will the presentation be distributed? Is that the question? And the answer is yes. We have all of your addresses, and we will distribute a copy of the presentation so you can have it and review it at leisure.
Give a few minutes. Or,
okay, we'll wait for any other questions.
Would you address the difference between actual savings and avoided costs as it pertains to CWSSI? I should read that.
Okay, we've had another question. And the question is, would you address the difference between actual savings and avoided costs as it pertains to CWSSI? And that's an excellent question. I actually haven't got it all that much, but it's very important that you understand what the difference is. Actual savings are if you want, real-time savings. I don't know, if you purchase an automobile, for example, for $10,000, but collectively you purchased it for $9,000 because of the discount. That's an actual savings of $1,000. What we mean by avoided costs is those are costs that otherwise would have been undertaken if you want to replicate a particular project. Most often it always occurs with capital assets. It means, I'll give you an example. If one municipality, say, builds a recreational facility, for the sake of argument, another municipality may say, we would like to use your recreational facility, and we think there are savings there because we are avoiding the cost of building a second recreational facility if we want to provide the same level of service for our kids. I don't know if that's really a valid argument, but that is what we mean by avoided costs. So you would take the cost of building a new facility for the kids and, of course, amortize it over the lifespan of such a facility and claim 1 year's worth of savings as avoided cost savings. I hope that makes sense. And, of course, I'll be happy to, go into more detail if you like. Okay, we have another question. And Susan, feel free to jump in.
Sure.
Answer as well.
Sure. We don't actually accept or decline. This question comes up earlier in the program. People would say, well, we didn't know if you approved our plan. We don't approve plans and we don't approve projects. The time that you know if a project is going to be funded is after you've undertaken it and followed all those guidelines. So is there a partner? Is there savings? Those are the things that make a project worthy of match funding. So we don't directly say, yeah, that project is going to be something that we're going to fund, that's going to fall under CWSSI. So, that would be, if you were undertaking the project, if you were deciding it, you might want to talk to us, and we would go through that list of questions that might help you decide whether a project is going to be applicable here or not. But we're not going to tell you that's in, that's out. That's something that you're going to decide, and tailor how you go forward with the project, hopefully so that it would be accepted.
All we have so far. So.
Okay, we'll give it another minute or two to see if any more questions come in.
And again, we will be, this has been recorded, so this will be available. I know that we've thrown an awful lot of information at you in a short period of time. And the reason we wanted to do this is because although some counties have been participating every year, we know that there's a change in leadership sometimes, there's a change in staff, and we want to make sure that we give you the most current information. I think you also know that we're always happy to meet with you, to take phone calls as you work through your CWSSI projects.
Okay. I think we've come to the end of our questions. I don't see anything new, so we will end this presentation. We really thank you for attending, for listening in. And again, attendees. And as I say, feel free to give Susan or the Department of State a call with any questions about the CWSSI program.
Again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the hard work that you do all year long in order to provide great projects and great CWSSI projects for us here at the Department of State. We're happy to work with you, as we've said, as you go through the motions. So thanks again, and we will make sure that this is distributed to all of the participants today.